Hey, welcome back. So in this video, let's take a look at a way we can render out in an animation that we created. And this is, once again, this is a tutorial that you can find a few lessons back. And we created this, we grabbed this free jerry rig, we downloaded the free Sketchfab model of this really awesome little rocket. And then we put our character on it, and now he is flying through, whatever space, right? And then we added a little particle effect that was actually pre-built as part of the content library, and we just kind of set it up, right? So whoever followed this tutorial, a few of you guys reached out to me and asked me what would be the process of actually rendering this out, right? So let's go through, a couple different options. So one option would be, as I mentioned before in my previous video, that you can just use PlayBlast. So how does that work? You can just go to animation, playback, PlayBlast, and in here you can set the scale of this guy. You can decide if you want to show ornaments like the grid and all this other little information like the heads-up display. If you don't, just turn that off. And then if you do a PlayBlast, it's going to simply render whatever you're looking at in your perspective view. So if I set my camera, on this angle and do a PlayBlast, right, it's going to, and then there's a couple things we can check, right? So format, it's going to be, let's do the AVF or AV foundation, and then encoding, I'm just going to leave it on H264. And then the display size, right? We can do it from the render settings, custom, or from the window. I'll just leave it on window, that's fine. Scale, it just means that it's gonna take this scale of the window and just reduce it by 50%. That's what 0.5 is. We don't really need any frame padding. And then of course you can also save it to a file, right? So you can save it and name it, and then you will have a little video file of that. So if we do a PlayBlast, let's take a look and see what that looks like. And this is what I'm given, right? So this is going to be my PlayBlast. Now the cool thing about PlayBlast is that it's literally going to reflect whatever is in your viewport. So as you turn on various things like the anti-alias, right? If you turn on ambient occlusion, you can see there's little shadows. You can turn the actual shadow of the model here. You can also turn on the lighting, and then you can set up lights, right? So if you create lights in here, that's going to be part of the PlayBlast, right? That's literally whatever you're seeing in the viewport. So just to demonstrate that, if I select the light and press E, let's just make it very specific, just so we can see the example of it, right? So just do something really weird, right? Light is coming from the top, and then if you go to PlayBlast, you'll see that's the actual lighting. So it's using the lighting from your viewport, right? So it's kind of cool and gives you a lot of freedom. It's almost like a sandbox environment. You could just literally play and do cool stuff, and and render out your animation that way. So that's one way. And then you can actually spice it up. So let's say you have a long, 2-3 minute animation that you did PlayBlast for, and you might say, well, I would like my animation to look a little bit nicer, right? How can I tweak it? You can always bring it into something like Adobe Premiere, and then there you can adjust the lighting, you can adjust the effects, you can even do filters and all of that stuff. So technically think of this as like the core foundation video, but then you have a million different tools, right? Even on your iPhone app, so you can change how stuff looks. So that would be one way of doing it. The other way would just actually rendering this out. And there's two ways, right? You can render this out using Maya render, or you can use, currently I'm in version 2025. You can also set up Arnold lighting. So let's just maybe explore and see what does that mean. So if I click on my display render settings, in here I have an option here. It says render using. I'm currently set to Arnold Renderer by default, but you can switch it to all these other ones. So let's just do something like, I don't know, just for fun, let's do Maya hardware, right? So Maya hardware, that just means that's going to be very similar to PlayBlast, but now it's going to give you option to give you PNG image sequences that are transparent, right? And then Maya software is going to be just, you know, let's do an example of that, right? So if we do we'll set it to Maya software, and then we'll leave it on PNG, and we'll do single frame. So we're not going to do a full sequence. Let's just see what that looks like. And then let's switch the preset to like 1K, right? So nothing crazy. So it's 1024 by 1024, and that's pretty much it, right? And then in here you have a couple other options, and I'm not even going to play with them because no one ever uses this, honestly. I don't know anyone. I've never met anyone who actually uses this. So I just want to go through the options. So if I actually do a render, let's click on this button right here. You can see what that looks like, right? So this is the Maya render, and it's default lighting. There's no lighting in the scene. Let's turn on the lights. Let's bring in a light like we just did with the PlayBlast. Let me just drop something in. I'll do directional light, and let's just do, you know, something like this. We can do Control D, so it's a little bit brighter. We can change the direction of it. Maybe we'll make one coming from, you know, the back of him, right? We can change the intensity. Maybe there's like a source of light or sunlight or something. And now if we do another render, you can see that that's actually is being affected, right? And there's, you know, it doesn't look too great, and there's ways you can tweak this. And some of them are right here, right? You can change some of the way this is displayed. You can play around with this and see what you like. But roll one actually doesn't look too bad. But this is not the way to render out. Like, I would strongly suggest not doing this. I just wanted to demonstrate that's what that is. Another thing you can do is Maya hardware. Now, hardware is interesting. I have used this a few times in my career when I needed something super fast, like the team would, you know, contact me and say, we need something in like, you know, 5 minutes, and it's a sequence of like, you know, 100 frames. Well, there's no way I can render this out as like a pretty Arnold renderer. So for that, a few times I had to actually use my hardware. And the way that works is it's really interesting. You can set the image format, so that's PNG, and the name, let's set this to, let's do multiple, right? So I'll do anything besides single. All of these are multiples. So let's just choose, doesn't really matter. Let's choose this one. And that's going to be, you know, PNG sequence, right? And our animation currently, you can see right here, is from 0 to 12. So let's do the same thing. It's going to be, let's switch this to 0 to 12, right? And now we can change the size if we wanted to. Let's maybe change it to like, I don't know, 720. So that's going to be 1280 by 720, right? And now if I render this out, you can see what that looks like. If I render it out as my hardware, right, I can preview it by doing this. That's my preview, and you can see how much nicer that looks than the Maya, what's the other one? Maya software, right? This already looks much better. So let's say you want this, and for whatever reason, you're happy with the quality of it. Like, you don't really care about using Arnold and making it like featured film quality. You just want something like this, but the whole benefit of this is that you can make the background transparent, right? So to demonstrate that, what you want to do is let's go to rendering, and let's go to render sequence, click on options, and in here we don't have a camera set up. I'm just going to use a perspective camera. That's fine, right? That's the one I'm looking through right now. And in here I can change, I can decide where I want the images to be, my PNG sequence. So let's choose one, and that's fine. I'm just gonna by default put it in this folder. That's okay. Let me just do like a Jerry test, so I know I have to delete that later. So I'll select that, and I'll say select, right? So now you can see I have a folder set up in my render sequence, and my frames are set from 0 to 12, right? So now technically if I say render, it should give me 12 PNGs of this guy from this camera, from this angle, as a sequence, as a transparent sequence. Let's see if that's true, right? So I'm gonna do render sequence. All right, and that was in real time. So you saw how fast that was, right? That was super fast. Now let's go ahead and take a look at those. All right, so now if I go and try to find these images, you would think, right, they're gonna be in my documents, Maya projects, default images, right? That's where I just created the folder, right? And you saw me do that. I went to render, I went to render sequence, I went into the options, and this is the path that I specified, right? Documents, Maya projects. But this confused me so many times. When I do this, when I specify the actual destination for my images and go attempt to look at them, they are never in here. And the reason for that is because the Maya hardware is required you to set up the actual project. Like if you set up the project, there's a specific hierarchy that it's using to render the hardware files. And I know it's a little bit confusing, but if you ever run into a situation where you can't find these, all you need to do is just simply go to your project that is set as for your Maya, right? If you go to your projects and go into default, in here, if you go into images, and in my case, I have to go into temp for some reason, even though I created the folder. If I go in here, there's a folder called perspective, right? And that's the name of my camera, right? So if I go in there, you will see that these are the 12 images that I just rendered out from this sequence. So just to repeat myself, don't get worried if you can't find your image sequence if you are using Maya Hardware 2.0 or Maya Hardware Rendering, because it's going to use the set Maya project instead of you specifying the folder for some reason. At least that's my experience, right? So now I can review these, right? If I click on one and press spacebar, you can see what that looks like. Now there's a good thing and a bad thing. A good thing is this file is completely transparent, which is great, right? Now I can, import it into Adobe Premiere and have this guy fly through a forest, right? He could just be a transparent image, which is great. But what is the bad thing? The bad thing is that it doesn't look as nice as the actual viewport. Now, why is that, right? Let's take a look. If I go into my settings, in here, if I go into color management, I could see in here it says output color transform preference, and it says apply output transform to the render, right? If I click on this, now I have a few options here. One of them is sRG Gamma Legacy will be applied to my transform to my render. What does that mean? It means this is now matching this here, right? So this preview that you're seeing is using sRGB Gamma Legacy kind of a shader mode, right? And now it's matching to this one as well. So now if I re-render this one more time, if I go to render and do render sequence, and let's just render this again. Now this is interesting, right? The preview looks completely terrible, but if we go into our images and attempt to preview them, now that looks much better, right? This actually looks much closer to what we saw there. So I'm not really sure why Maya is doing this, but this is a awesome, clean PNG transparent sequence that now you can use to import and do, really cool effects with this, right? Now, what if I wanted to actually preview this as an actual sequence, animation sequence? I can open up QuickTime, and in QuickTime, I can go to File, Open Image Sequence. Let's navigate to our file, which is going to be Projects, Default, Images. We know it's going to be TMP, Perspective, and I'm just say choose. And I'm going to set this to 20 frames per second. That's what this is right here. And I'm going to do actual size and say open. All right, so now check this out. Now I have the preview of this image sequence, but because I opened it in QuickTime, obviously the black is going to be, this is transparent, right? It's not going to show you transparent because you can't do a transparent video preview. But if you import this into Adobe Premiere, once again, all of these would be transparent. So that's one way of doing it, right? That's a really cool and powerful way of doing it. And the reason I say powerful is because it's super fast. There's no rendering wait time. You don't need to wait 2-3 minutes for each frame to render out. It's pretty much instant. So that's pretty cool, right? All right, so that's one way of doing it. Let's take a look at what would be the process. And you know what? I'm just thinking of this. If anyone is super new and they literally can't even import a sequence into Adobe Premiere, maybe we should take a look at that and see what is the process for that. Let me open up Premiere. All right, so here I am on Adobe Premiere. Let me say new project. And I'm not going to select any of these, right? This is just like a stock footage that Premiere is giving you. I'm just going to simply say create. So if you want to name your project, give it a name. You can also, of course, modify any of these settings here if you want to copy your media into your folder, all of that stuff. But for now, I'm not going to do anything. I'm just going to say create. All right, so when I say create, I'm given a completely blank template. There's nothing here. There's no media files, nothing, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into my project here, right click, and I'm going to say import. Next, I'm going to navigate to my Maya projects, default, images. Again, that's going to be TMP, perspective. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on this 0.png, the first one in the sequence. I'm going to say show options. And in here, make sure you check image sequence and then say import. Okay, as soon as you do, you can see a file showed up, and it looks like just one PNG file. But if you drag it into your timeline, a few things will happen. One of them is the project will automatically adjust itself to the dimensions of the exported image, and you can see that happen right here, right? So we have this proper scaling, so we don't have to worry about, creating the project to be a certain dimensions before we import the sequence. We can just kind of go backwards. And now if I press play, I'm seeing exactly the same thing as I saw in my QuickTime preview, but this time I know that this sequence is actually transparent, and I can demonstrate it by, let's just bring in an image. All right, so I'm just going to import something. I'm going to say import a background image. It doesn't really matter what it is. In this case, I'm just literally just having a quick test, right? So I just grabbed some forest image and I blurred it. So that means if I grab this still image and put it in my timeline, if I drag it into my timeline, you can see Adobe Premiere drags it and puts it in place, right? Now that's what it looks like. Now if I grab my animation, put it on the top layer, grab my image, put it in the bottom, and maybe I can trim this, right? I can click on this little slider. I can grab something like this razor tool, and let's just create a cut. And now if I could just select this and press delete, and now you can see the image is the sequence is totally transparent with the cool background, right? And honestly, on my UI here, I don't even see the loop option. Let me click on plus, and there it is. Let's add this to our UI here and say, okay. All right, now I have this loop. So if I press play, and if I press loop and press play, you can see what that looks like, right? So now we have this. Now, this is amazing, right? Because we got this really cool looking image sequence or an animation with transparent background, with the hardware rendering without any wait time. Like, think about the power of this if you're making something long, like a 5-6 minute video or an animation. This is amazing, right? Because there's no wait time for rendering. And of course, the downside might be, the image doesn't look as good as it could, but there's many scenarios where this is totally fine. And then, as I was telling you before, now in here, you can modify the image, right? So if you click on the image sequence, we can go to maybe video effects, and in here you have you have color correction, for example. If I want to do maybe a color balance or something like that, I can grab any one of these filters, and there's so many you can play with. And there's also obviously millions of YouTube tutorials, but you can just grab any one of these and drag it right onto your clip. And then as soon as you do, you can see in here, well, all these cool options, right? So if I wanted to add a little more red into my character, I could do that, right? So you have full power here. You can do midtones, you can add blue, or do whatever you want, right? So essentially, this is a really cool way to manipulate your images once you bring it into Adobe Premiere. All right, so now let's jump back into Maya. And now since we took a look at the Maya hardware, let's take a look and see what would it take to turn this into an Arnold rendered image sequence. And we'll do the same thing. We'll create a image sequence using Arnold, and then let's bring it into Adobe Premiere, and we can even compare the two and see which one we like better, right? So for that, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna create both of these, I'm gonna delete both of these lights, because this is just for viewport lights, right? So I'm gonna delete these, and now there's no lights in the scene, obviously. How do we turn this into Arnold rendering? So the first thing I need to do is go into my render settings, and let's switch the render using Maya Hardware 2.0. Let's switch this to Arnold render, and this is the one that 99% of the people would use, right, to render this out. Again, let's leave it on 720. That's fine. The frame range, we'll leave it on 0 to 12. Obviously, that still works. And the output, the frame animation extension, we'll leave that the same as well. And I'm going to leave all of this the same. Now, the only thing I do want to change is image format is currently set to EXR. Let's switch this to PNG, just like we did with the hardware one, right? So EXR is nice because it does give you a transparent alpha image, but the file size is going to be 100 times larger. They're going to be huge files if you want something super high quality. We don't really need this for this experiment. Let's just go with the PNG, and we could see if we need to tweak any of this stuff. Let's just wait to tweak this until we add some lights and change the materials, right? So the first step to set up Arnold lighting or Arnold render is going to be bringing in Arnold lights. So let's drop in a sky dome, and let's go ahead and set up in our attribute editor. Let's set up a image, right? HDRI image. I'm going to click on image name, and I have a few that I already download, and I always use them for all my tutorials. But if you want to download any of these, right, all you need to do is just head over to Google and just type in free HDR or HDRI, and there's going to be many different options. For most of my YouTube video tutorials, I always end up using this guy right here. It's just a environment image, right, that you can get. So if I say open, you can see how the lighting adjusts itself, and it looks really awesome in my opinion. So I'm pretty happy with this, and that's just the sky dome, right? There's let's just actually turn this on. There's nothing else. It's just the sky dome, no additional lights. If we wanted to preview this image just with the sky dome, I can go to Arnold. Let's do a render and see what that looks like. And already, right, you can see a huge difference between the shading. You can see there's a fire instead of just a smoke, like in Maya hardware, right? Looks much better. Now, it does look a little bit grainy. How can we change the quality of this? Well, we can go to settings. We can also always change the quality of our camera, diffuse, specular. I like to pump all these up. That's going to give you a better quality here a little bit. Another thing you can do is click on your sky dome, and you could go to attribute editor, and in here there's something called samples. I usually switch these to like 4 or 5, depends on the speed of your computer. But right away you'll see that this is going to be looking much nicer, right? If you don't want to render out the background of your HDRI, because once again, maybe you want to bring it into Adobe Premiere and have your own custom background, you can select it right here in your outliner, and under the attribute editor you have this camera slider, and you can just drag this down, and now it looks like it's black, but it's actually transparent, just like it was with our hardware, right? So now this is cool, right? Because we have Arnold lighting, and we have transparent image, and we're not even using the Arnold materials, right? If you switch these to Arnold, a lot of times you will get much better results. Right now, this is crazy, right? This is actually set to foam, and it's amazing it's even looking this good. Maybe it's because it's Maya 2025. In previous versions, the foam material wouldn't even work with Arnold rendering. So I actually find this very interesting. A lot of times what does work is something like Lambert. So if I switch this to Lambert right here, a lot of times this will actually fix the image. And I gotta be honest with you, it looks just exactly the same. So that's fascinating. So another thing you could do is you can, of course, actually apply Arnold material to this. And to do this, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into my color here. I'm going to copy this link because I don't want to go hunt for this image anymore. And the rocket doesn't come with anything else. I think it's just a color image. It doesn't really have a normal map or anything like that. I'm not seeing a bump map or any other maps. It's just a color image from Sketchfab. So what I could do is I can right click on this, go to favorites, do AI standard surface. Now this is Arnold material, right? It's AI, it has AI prefix in front of it, so you know it's Arnold. So we can actually call it AI rocket. And let me actually put this into the color, right? So I want to go in here, do file, and this is where the image goes. So let me do Control V, press enter. All right, so there it goes. So now it's the image, and it looks the same as Lambert, but now because we are an Arnold material, we have cool options, right? One of them being roughness. We can change the roughness of our rocket, and of course I need some color for that, specular color. And you can see right in the rendering, you can see how it's starting to look more reflective, right? So this is super reflective. This is not reflective. You can see the difference. So the reason I'm showing all this is for any new artist who is completely brand new to rendering or setting up materials, the power of using specifically Arnold materials is all of these settings. Like you can dial your materials to make them look exactly as you intend to, instead of keeping it super simplified or cartoony, right? Maybe I want this rocket to be a little more metallic. Well, I have metalness, right? So I can dial this up. And you can see how this is getting darker, right? I can change this to make it, you know, as I wish. Maybe I like something like this. That looks pretty cool. So that kind of takes care of the metal for the rocket. All right, so next, let's go ahead and also assign a material, Arnold material, to Jerry, right? Now, the way this rig is set up, if you click on it, you can't select it, right? That's just something that was added to this rig. So what you can do is you can just go in the outliner, open up the Jerry, right? If you're assuming you're following along. If you click on Geo, right, you can see that is being selected. If you open up Geo, and here I have something called body, right? If I select the body and right click and go to material attributes, that is not helpful. Let me isolate this for a second. Let me go to material attributes again. Okay, there it is. So now I'm taken to the body material for this character, and currently you can see it's also set to Lambert, which technically will work in Arnold as well. And you can see that working here. But if you wanted to, and right now I just have the body selected, right? You can clearly see that there are other elements like the eye, right? There's the eye geo, eyeball, pupils, all of that is controlled through the outliner. So you can assign different materials to it. But just for fun, right? Let's say we want to add a little specularity to this, and instead of keeping it a flat Lambert, let's assign a Arnold material, right? So same as before, I'm just going to copy this link to the texture. I'm going to do Control C, and in here, instead of Lambert, let's just select AI standard surface, right? So that's right here. So I just changed the material of this mesh to be Arnold material, right? And just like before, let's go ahead and go to color, do file, and let me just paste this image, press enter. Okay, and now you can see the difference, right? So the Arnold material obviously is going to have a lot more things in it, including roughness, right? So let's go here, let's adjust our roughness. Maybe we don't want our guy to be so shiny, but maybe we want him to be just a little bit shiny. We can change the roughness. We have, what else can we do? We could do subsurface, we could do code, sheen, all this stuff. So all this power comes with using the Arnold material, right? You could also even go into the color itself, and in here you have color balance. So you can actually pump up the exposure. Maybe I want this to be a little, brighter, right? I could do that. You can see what that looks like. I'm not sure if you want to do that or not, but you can control all this different color balance stuff. So, and of course, I think Lambert has that as well. But the bottom line is Arnold material is going to give you a lot of power, right? And let's see if we can find something that kind of works for us. I'm just going to leave a little bit of roughness. That's fine. Okay. Now let me jump out of isolate, and voila. So now you see the difference between something like Arnold hardware and Arnold lighting. And I'm not even using any lights, right? It's just the sky dome for now. Let's just maybe add another light to here as well. Let's drop in maybe an area light, and let's just make it a little bit larger. I can rotate it. Let's just put it in position, and let's just take a couple minutes, kind of set up the lights. So maybe let's just do a 2-point light, right? I don't want to do anything crazy. This is not really a lighting tutorial. It's more of a rendering tutorial. So let me just position one light here, and let's do one on the other side. So I'm going to do Control D to duplicate this. I'm going to switch this to world, and I'm just going to move it over to this side. Press E. Let me reposition it so it's facing the character. And let's press W. All right, so now we have two things, right? We have three things. We have the sky dome, we have the front light, and we have kind of the rim light. Now, how do we control which light is affecting what? For that, we can always go to light editor. So that's this button right here. If I click on that, that's going to give me control over each light individually. So if I select the sky dome, I can turn it off for a second. And now I can see how the other two lights are affecting my mesh, right? If I select this, I can change the samples, of course. And I like to change the samples also for the shadow as well. So I like to switch this to 4x4 just to increase the quality. Let's do the same thing with this one. We'll do 4x4. That's fine. All right, I'm going to go back to the front one here, and I need to change the intensity. Right now it's clearly not doing much of anything, right? So let's just change this from 1 to like, I don't know, let's do like 9,000. That's way too much. So now, since I have a lot of lights, I can start using this dial and just dial this down, and let's just choose something that makes sense. So it looks like something like 100 makes sense. I'm going to choose light shape 2, which is going to be my rim light. And same thing, I'm just going to pump this up to maybe a little less. Let's do 500. All right, now we have this cool rim light. And same thing, maybe I can just change the intensity a little bit. Right, and I can, of course, also change the position. Again, this is really not a lighting tutorial, but I'm just kind of playing around. All right, so that looks pretty good. Let's see, what else can we do? If I click on my sky dome, you can see the sky dome gets selected. If I press E and begin to rotate my sky dome, watch what happens to the actual render, right? It's going to dramatically change based on the environment how my image looks. So a lot of times if you bring in a sky dome, make sure you take the time to find the angle of the shot that you like. And you can even, flip it around and see what makes sense, right? You can dramatically, you guys know this, you can dramatically change the lighting just based on your HDRI, right? And let's say I'm happy with this. Okay, cool. Because I can play with the lights for hours, right? To get it perfect. Let's say we like this. How do we export this out? Well, we already set up our export settings in here, right? We set this to PNG. We set this to be multiple frames. We set our presets, so all of that is ready to go. We also know it's going to be from 0 to 12. Obviously, we do want to have the alpha, right, for our PNG. We want our PNG to be transparent. So when you switch it to Arnold Renderer, make sure that you don't have, something like this checked, right? You don't want to have skip alpha on. So I do want my alpha. So I'm going to close that. That's looking good. Let's go ahead and go to render image, render sequence. We're going to leave the same folder, right? Perspective camera, and let's just do a render sequence. Alright, you guys, so this took quite a bit longer, right, obviously, but the quality of the image is tremendously better as well, right? So let's go ahead and jump into our image sequence and take a look. Alright, so now if I preview these, I can press spacebar, I can see that they're transparent, very nice. Let's go ahead and jump into Premiere. And in here, I'm going to right click and do import. I'm going to grab my first image sequence, go to show options, make sure image sequence is on. Again, I'm on 0. I'm going to do import. And then I'm going to select the new sequence, drag it in, and let's take a look. We can see what that looks like. We can also expand our background, right? And we can see what that looks like. So here is the Arnold one, right, versus the hardware one. Now let's put them side by side so we can kind of compare. And I'm gonna do that now. Let me. All right, so here they are side by side. Now this one, the Arnold one, does look a little bit lighter. Honestly, I wouldn't mind throwing in some, let's see, we could do contrast or color balance. Let's just do contrast. It feels a little washed out. Let me drag the contrast on here, and let's just pump this up just a little more, right? I think just a little bit, little touch. And of course, it's going to be based on your export settings and lights and HDR and all of that. But I just wanted to have kind of a side by side, right? Let's go ahead and do preview. All right, and here you go. You can see the difference between something that took a long time to render and something that took literally seconds. So it is possible to tweak the one on the left, the hardware one, to make it even more appealing. And I guess the point of this is, what do you want? What are you going for? Are you doing like a featured film where you need something amazing? Which obviously, I'm sorry, in this case, maybe the Arnold is not the best example, but I just want to show the actual process, right? You get the actual step-by-step workflow. So anyways, thank you so much for watching. I hope you guys find this helpful, and now you have all the tools to make awesome little animations. All right, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in our next video.